Hey everybody, welcome to the October 2022 State of the Market. I am here with a gentleman that you all know and love, Al Jurgella. What's up, brother?
Hey, brother, how you doing?
Good. Yep.
You having coffee tonight?
Tea. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. That's very healthy of you. I have
Well,
decided not to have tea, and as I usually do, I break
pepperoni.
in my weekend with Bill, and this is about to start. Save the first sip for the show.
I'm gonna surprise everybody one of these times and
There you
have a
go.
beer, but not tonight.
This is the state of the market in October 2022.
Yes. So, I think when we did the last day of the market, there was an auction going with Golden that ended early in October. I think their September auctions, the non-elite ones, end after the end of the month. So,
Right.
So those will always like sneak into the next month when we're doing the state of the market. But I guess before we get going on and looking at the three auctions we need to look at, there's not many. There's less than 100 items total in the three auctions for soccer, and some of them were like wax and cases of wax and that sort of thing. But any thoughts on this month? Have you been active much or not really?
I've picked up a few things. I mean, my big thought was some pieces incredibly underperformed where I thought they were going to be. Yeah. I think that I'd be lying if I say that isn't some sort of concern, generally. And I think when we did our over unders, when was it? Oh, that was on a premium video.
Yeah.
I think you did many. I think you took most of the unders and you got them all right. Which is a little concerning. I think we had a messy.
I took the unders on the vintage and I took the overs on the pre-modern.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, but in general, it just
But
the
they were all
performance.
unders.
Yeah, it was all under. It was all under, right? So at least where I had marked where I thought the market was. So in a way, just like we or I struggled to calibrate up in the market, I'm also still struggling to calibrate down in the market.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of a realization, that I've had. Of course, some items in very high grade or rare in that particular grade, like condition sensitive cards or true rarities, have done on a marginal basis pretty well. But other things that are, condition rarities got, took it in the freaking chin. I mean, the biggest one that comes to mind is that Beckenbauer PSA 8, which sold for, I think, $13,000. And that card sold for like 66,000 like 2 months ago. I mean, we're not talking like 2 years ago. We're not talking about it in the beginning of January before the financial kind of crisis that we're in, like literally 2 months ago. And so to imagine if you're the consigner, you see 66,000, you're like, okay, I'll get it in, I'll go through the process, and it sells for 13, which means you take home 11. I mean,
yeah, worst case, you're thinking worst case. Okay, yeah, I'll take a hit, maybe 20% or something, and
yeah, so I get 45 net, 40 net, and then you take 10. I mean, pain, right? So I think there's definitely some pain to be had. We can get into some of the specifics about why, where, what are some of the drivers of that. But in general, I'd say much more pain than I had expected at all. Then again, I just looked at the Facebook graph. They had a crappy quarter, and that stock's down like 75% since January. So I mean, should I be surprised? I mean, maybe not, right? In the scheme of things. So when I'm sitting around, looking at this stuff like I am trying to make some sense of it, it just seems like a real tough market going into what should be an amazing time for soccer collectors.
Yeah. We've had some bad timing with the market, just in regards to like the downturn, like after, like we had Euros, right? And there was like a big downturn right at that. And then now we're entering the World Cup, and we have this monster macro, pressure. So it's unfortunate. I think, with soccer growing and having a lot more collectors than it once did, I think that there's some pressure pushing the opposite direction also. But I mean, the strength of that is only so, is going to only fight the macro a certain amount. But I don't think we'll ever see it back to where we were pre-COVID. You know what I mean? But like, I think that we're definitely going to be feeling pain, especially if we have to sell or, if we're the positive is if you have, a nest egg. I mean, this is at least in my eyes, a good time to be picking things up that, maybe I didn't want to spend quite as much or something like that, especially on the more common items. Like I don't have a great Beckenbauer rookie. So now, like now I'm starting to get intrigued just based on like the pricing. Like I can pick up something pretty nice, just based on current comps. So, I
definitely will say that I think there's a couple things going on at a high level. I mean, the ultra premium market is taking it on the chin. That was also the market that accelerated the most, right?
Yeah.
And as you alluded to, I think we have some really, really good collectors that have come into the space, and that's amazing and that's good. But a collector doesn't necessarily need the highest grade in every copy. So that provides some ballast at this mid-grade level. I think when we're on the Discord, somebody had mentioned, wow, I bought a Beckenbauer, 4 for $3,000 or $4,000. That 8 seems relatively cheap. There's still a lot of people willing to get into that elite card market, even at not the elite grades, at solid prices for a foundation. So, I think that I think it's good for collectors. Anytime prices go down, if you're a true collector, you love it. I love it right now as well. At the same time, no one wants to be the one catching the falling knife. And it seems like some people are stepping away on the high end part of the market, which is never that many collectors, right?
Right.
It's unreasonable to expect, I don't know, 1,000 soccer collectors willing to drop $100,000 on a card.
Right.
The market isn't that deep.
It's not mature enough for us to be at that, in that situation.
And if a bunch of those people go away, I mean, it just falls down to the one bidder who was willing to bid. And I think that's what we've seen to a certain point. So, those are some of the things that go through my mind on the macro level. I'm sure we'll talk more about it when we go through the individual auctions, but in general, I'm excited as a collector, and I'm crushed if I'm a flipper.
I mean, what do you even do in that situation? It's like,
I think you just got to take your losses, and you just.
Do you? Like, I mean, I'm almost like I turn into a long-term holder, like, I know that's not the way of the flipper, but
I don't know.
Especially if you're leveraged, you know what I mean? Like if you
I think that sometimes you just get capital called and you got to return your capital. And if you would anywhere think that we're, it's impossible to always call the bottom, but if you think this is a prolonged event, you take your capital, lick your wounds, take your losses. And if you have capital left and the things keep falling, you can buy back in, and get, a positive wave. It'll be fascinating. We've always said that the World Cup is a great time to think about selling because you get this bump. This may be the first World Cup we've ever seen where that may not be the case because of the macro situation.
Well, yeah,
And
a lot of reasons.
yeah, the macro situation. It's in the winter, right?
We have
Time.
everybody wanting to dump.
Yeah,
You know
tons
what I
of
mean?
people
It's a
wanting
whole
to
different
dump.
thing. Like, there's been a lot of comments in our Discord about, you know, like, you know, so eBay's doing something for soccer. You know, PWCC is, Golden is for the World Cup. You know, they're all doing something, and it's just going to be flooded with shit starting next month, in my opinion. So, and when I say shit, I don't mean bad stuff. I just mean flooded with cards and stickers. And it's like, holy moly, like this might be like, you know, Christmas shopping, you know, ooh, you know, like I'll take that, I'll take that, I'll take that. And I almost wonder if it's a better idea to not sell coming up.
Yeah, and I don't think we're gonna know until it's passed, right?
You're
and
right.
You're
Yeah.
gonna, you know, and I think, you know, in a way, you're like, okay, well, if you have 3x of the supply, but 4x of the new eyeballs, well, you're gonna be good.
Yeah.
Right. If you have 3x of the supply and 1.5x the eyeballs, you're gonna get crushed.
Yeah.
And the reality is we just don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. And now I will say that even leading up to the World Cup, I've been getting, you know, more offers on my cards, a lot of them low balls, on eBay already. So that's just something anecdotal. I'm one guy, right?
Yeah.
But certainly it feels like there's a little bit more interest than there was a month or two ago. So let's look at the results and talk about them.
Sounds good. I'm going to go to the first Golden, I think. Let's hope I picked the right tab. I did. Okay. So this is the auction that ended in early October.
Yeah.
It looks like there's 39 total items. I have it sorted based on lowest price, so we'll work our way up. So, I mean, like this Duncan Edwards 8.5. I mean, that's actually a pretty good result on that in my eyes.
Yeah, it's a hard to get in an 8.5, but the National Spastics aren't super uncommon. And
right.
I mean, it is a really nice grade. I'd say most of them, though, you get would probably be 6s to 7s. So it's a little bit better, but it's a cheap card, right? In good condition.
This seems like the 34 Hill, which I think is a 35. The PSA 8, that's a pretty low price compared to what we had seen that selling for in the past. And maybe that was just when people didn't realize it's not as uncommon as people believe, and it's not that as uncommon in a decent grade. But yeah, that's like a huge, hugely lower than it was.
Disappointing, yeah. You know, I think there's a couple things going on that one. It's not as attractive as Ardath. It's not as well known. It's really, I think I consider it a 35. So there's a number of things that are knocking that right there. But still, I would have expected that to do more and that's going to be a common theme.
You guys are going to hear a lot of that.
I'm just going to,
two old guys having trouble adjusting weird.
Yeah. So I just don't think, if I'm a seller, I mean, honestly, in retrospect, you look at all this stuff, and if I forecast 10 years, I think just picking up almost, you know, a good 90% of this stuff right here isn't bad, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I have been,
although we've been saying that for a year, so who the hell knows?
Yeah,
right?
True. Like, we can totally be wrong. And if you would have bought in 3 or 4 months ago, you probably would be down, you know, on certain things. So,
but you can't time the bottom. So that's the whole thing. And if you have a long enough horizon, right? Like it's just, I think that, you know, you're essentially betting on the demand, and I mean, that's what we've done the whole time. So It's hard to like not change our philosophy when
because nothing's changed in the macro demand profile generation narrative
right.
at all, right? I mean, that is this high result, that daily sketch. I think those are really common cards for that Pele for $600. Again, I think that's just a little lack of knowledge in the market to my eye.
Just because you don't see them being sold, because nobody wanted them back in the day. This was an okay result, and you know the Ogden's famous footballers, Billy Meredith. It's a 5, which I think is one of the highest grades.
And I would say that that's an exceptional result. That's one of the few where I'd rather be the seller.
Yeah.
In this market.
Yeah, I have one of those. I wonder. Yeah, I'm not selling it though. I'll just hold. Yeah, these have taken,
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a 2, but just to
Below
get a
1,000.
Pele and a Garincha 58 for under
less than
$800.
Yeah.
Yeah. Calcio Flash Baggio or Calcio, PSA 7 for $1,000.
That seems relatively low. It's a relatively difficult card, especially in a 7. Most of them are off center. I thought I had one around here. I was going to show you, but yeah. So most of those are off center. So to get one pretty well centered like that for $1,000, I think is a really good deal. Most of them look like this. And that one looks like spot on.
Yeah, it looks really square for sure. Yeah, it's a nice copy for sure. Just eye appeal wise. Then I mean that Ruiz Romero.
Actually, that was a good result on that one too.
Yeah, I think that sold for more than I anticipated.
And again, high grade, not overly super important, card.
Yeah, and that's overly rare.
Yeah.
But it's another one that you just haven't seen for sale. So, maybe there's some people expect, a few people were like, I haven't seen this before. I need to jump on it. It's a high grade and
must be a true rarity,
Yeah, but even if it's not, I mean, I don't think it's horrible. I mean, it's still one of the 5 to 8 greatest players of all time. And, I mean,
and what's likely to be the highest grade for a long time.
Yeah.
If it ever gets topped, which I doubt actually.
Yeah, because those have really weird cuts.
Yeah, I mean the Sepp Meyer rookie in a PSA 7 taking down 1,000 shocked me. This was one that really did shock me.
Yeah, because that's a 66, right? So
this is a 65. This is the regular
64.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same cardboard one as the Mueller and Beckenbauer.
Yeah,
and
so that's a good grade, but
a 7's a great grade, but you can find those on eBay Germany, in 4s and 5s for $50.
So a little lack of education, I guess. So
yeah, should they be available for $50? No, because he's amazingly underrated, but still, you can.
Sort of odd to have both of these for sale at the same time.
Yeah, they were slightly different. One had a different cut and coloring, but yeah, it was interesting. And they sold for basically the same thing.
Yep. Balas Santos team sticker. No bids. That was a little ambitious.
Yeah, it was ambitious. Like the Di Stefano one below that we thought was ambitious, but it did get a bid.
Yeah, got a couple. So it got to 1,100, and then the BP.
And then the Magic Dragon got a massive bid at a PSA 9. I mean, it's a tough grade, but you can find that sticker. It's one of those again, like the Sepp Meyer and lower grade relatively easily. So
yeah.
And then look at the Ardath of Stanley Matthews. Actually, that one went pretty well too. 1900.
Yep. That's is there, I think there's only, was there 3 nines, and then so that's
Like
the next.
28s or something we saw the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, the Force of Goal Baggio 2 for $2,000. What's that been kind of going for? Like, that's obviously lower than what the others sold for, but
Yeah, I mean, we had, and I'm going to speak from memory, that PSA 4 or something, the first one of the market went for like 34,000 or something, a huge number. Since then, we've had the 7 go for like 20 or 21. We've had a 6, which had, for some foxing on the back. So I don't think it should probably have been a 6 go for like 9,500. We've had a number of 2s to 5s go, 2s to 4s now go in the 2 to 5,000. I think now there's almost 10, 8 to 10 of these graded. So, I find this card still to be, there's been some question about this. I still find this to be easily the most attractive, important, and difficult to find rookie card. I think that obviously when a mid-grade copy sold for $30,000, I mean, everyone went to try to find out if they had something laying around, right? And some of them come to market. I do feel like this is going to be a little bit like the situation where you get a flood and then they kind of disappear largely for the next couple of years, which frankly has been most of the last 10 years. It was super hard to find these cards, and I've been looking for them for more than a decade and just always struggled to find one. So I think that's kind of the price of entry. And when you look at this one versus the Calcio Flash that I was just showing here a second ago, a 7 sold for 1,000, and then a 2 sells in the Force of Goal sells for still 2,000, and that kind of just shows you the balance and the hierarchy. Force of Goal far and away the leader, but I would say the Calcio Flash close to the number 2 position with the Edis. The Edis right now has the better pop reports, but over time, I'd say that feels slightly more common. And then with the last one being the Panini Calciatore, being the most common. So, I find the Force of Goal cards, whether they're these guys like Baggio, Maldini seems, obviously super tough. I mean, all the stars seem to be tough in that set. I mean, I've only seen a few Zicos, a few Maradonas. Over time, I've only seen, a few things, a few copies of every Socrates Juniors, a few of those. And I just feel like Force of Goal is one of the most special issues from the 1980s, in my opinion. And clearly some others, at least in the market, tend to subscribe to that opinion, given the relatively $2,000 for a PSA 2 card from the 1980s. Show me a baseball card that does that.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna have to be like some obscure regional.
Show me a football card that does that. Show me a hockey card that does that.
Yeah, you need to get that.
No, I'm just gonna put you on mute though. Mute it.
All right, so we'll move on. We'll look at that. The 71 Monty Gum. We don't see a ton of those come up. And to get a 3 where it hasn't been removed from an album, that's a I feel like the price is kind of sneaking down on that as well. It's not quite, people aren't quite as aggressive with that one, because I think there's a few of them that kind of went like eyebrow raising numbers, but this isn't like shocking to me.
Yeah, no, I look at it. I don't think this is either good or bad. I felt this is probably in this market where a card like this should be. It's a great card, and I think as we've seen the number of Palorexes climb to 60, 70, you've seen the Vanderhoots climbed to 150, and we know there are more out there. You've seen the sicker Verlags not climb as much, but this card, I think on a ratio basis has become more attractive.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of years, even though it's 70-71, it's his first card, and it definitely has a little bit of true rarity and lore to it, and just the format of this card is insanely beautiful.
Yeah, I think it has a lot going for it, particularly being a card, and for Americans that collect, there's, I think, a large percentage of the Americans prefer cards over the stickers. So I think that, but it's just gorgeous. It's like one of the classic looks, like period pieces. If you look back, you're just like, yeah, that is totally a early 70s look, and it's just so recognizable to collectors at this point. So yeah, just a gorgeous card. I love it. We've seen a lot of Saravan Zicos lately.
Yeah, and I think shockingly, I think there's only a couple 8s, and a PWC and 8 went for like 2,200 or 2,400. So this card's actually up over the last couple months.
Okay. But probably within the percentage.
Within the range, but yeah. It still is. I mean, for years we only saw 1s and 2s of this, and occasionally an unstuck copy would show up and typically get a 3 or 4 because of a bend. So, I still think this is a decent result for that sticker in this market. And I would be, a little disappointed if I was the seller of the Mueller PSA 7 at 3,400, but at 3,700. But again, it's just the way this market is right now. It's probably about right.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, I mean, even the sellers, if you're a collector, I mean, and you're flipping that into other stuff, you're getting other cards at a relative, similar price, you know what I mean? Value.
Yeah, they've fallen as well. So you can get, you don't need to feel badly about, selling that a little bit less if you're using that money to go into stuff that also went down. It's just like you would have traded it, last year or whatever, right?
Right. Al Solta is asking you to remember to mention your insight on the Baggio issues. Were you gonna do that more you didn't realize it was state of the market this week, right?
Oh yeah, I didn't realize that, but I just kind of went over them, didn't I? I said,
I thought so.
The Forza goal, actually, Calcio Flash. Even though Calcio Flash seems to be more common than Eddie's, and then the Panini Calciatore is obviously the most common, the yellow one. The one that I didn't, which I'll include in the 5, is the Edis double panel one, the Air panel that has Baggio and, gosh, who is it? It's not Maldini. It's why am I drawing a blank right now?
Manelli.
Yes. So Manelli. So you've got those two, and we actually talked about this on the premium a little bit last week about just where those come from, because you don't see those double panels in the wild that much, but we have seen those double panels for 12, 14 years out in the market. So they've always kind of been out there. We're not sure if they're sheet cut or anything. Those are super cool, and I think there's only 2 of them that are graded, and I think they're just really special that it happens to be both of the the Air card,
the Airs,
the Airs, and their name switched. I think that's awesome. There's only a couple graded. You see them out there though, so they've been around for a long time. So I don't think it's a malicious thing. And I've seen other ones that have been hand cut that probably came from those dual things. I don't know exactly how they're issued, but I definitely, if you like that one, there's a rationale you could put that ahead of the Calcio Flash, and I wouldn't have a problem with that at all, because I think it's super, super fun, interesting card from the 1980s. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think that would you position those any differently?
I think that we're pretty similar. I push the Edis up a bit. I think as a personal preference, I prefer the Edis over the Flash.
Tesla Flash, yeah.
Like I think for me, there is a gap between those two. Particularly just, I mean, I feel like at least anecdotally for me, I feel like the Edis has been less available in my eyes. So I think that, and I'm sure that some people like and some dislike the fact that it's an error. But I think that for me, just growing up during the 80s and error cards were like a part of the American collecting lore, that kind of adds a charm to that for me. So, but yeah, I mean, I can't really I don't feel like there's some material difference, like probably market wise. I think you're pretty accurate in that. So
yeah, I mean, I do those cards. I mean, are you of the same thought that like the Forza goal, regardless of the pops, is like incredibly more attractive, or do you think it's only marginally more? Because
I don't think that the gap is as big as you do.
Okay.
I feel like it's a little closer. But I think as we move on, I think that it definitely has things going for it that the others do not. So I'll accept that is at the top. But I don't necessarily. I wouldn't go I wouldn't say would I prefer a force a goal over one of each of the other three. I wouldn't. But I think you would.
That's probably right.
Yeah. So I mean, that's where I kind of, I feel like there's just less of a gap. So
yeah, no, I think it's fair, and I think that's the critical question, right? Because
yeah.
in this auction, we were just seeing, a 7, Calcio Flash is a high grade, really good card for $1,000 versus a 2 Force a Goal. I still probably go for the 2 Force a Goal, but I wouldn't.
I just wonder,
anyone.
long term, when people start playing the numbers as opposed to, because we have a bias of not seeing those for a long time, but at this point in time, if you just look at the the pops, they're the same.
If I was new to it, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't value the Force a Goal
as much as I do.
Much more than you would the except from being a card,
yeah.
And so,
I mean, there would be some percentage of more, but I agree with you. It'd be less than what I personally.
And I tend to think long term, are people going to go to that? You know what I mean? And if we don't see an Edis explosion, and we haven't really seen an Edis sell for some crazy amount, but at some point, people are going to go, well, okay, there's 15 Force of Goals graded, and there's 20 Edis. Why is Force of Goal going for 4x or whatever? And I wonder, because we're not going to have all educated entrants, right? So I just wonder if that will naturally shift a bit.
Good analysis there. I was going to try to look for what some of those Forza, what some of those Edis is sold for, because I haven't seen one in a while, which goes to your narrative.
Yeah, that's another anecdotal evidence. So
yeah.
So does Vintage Soccer have any well-known error cards or recall reissue cards similar to the Billy Ripken? So I can't recall many that were that they actually corrected. So I don't think do you know any, Al? I can't think of any that were errors that ended up having a corrected version.
I feel like I know of a couple, but they're just not jumping out at me. I mean, I guess the one that's still a big mystery is the 58 Titulares number 86, 3 versions of Pele, where you have one that has no star and no overprint, one that has a star and an overprint, and one that has just a overprint. And just the reasons why those were done that way is kind of unknown. I mean,
Right.
I guess you could assume that, maybe the star, was
You win
the
certain prize or
yeah,
something.
won something, and then they decided that there were too many of them, and then they started printing new things. So there are a few of those types of things where they were printed midstream or printed differently. You also notice, trying to think of the issue, it may have been it may just be a baseball issue, but there's been a couple issues, I think, there where they use a black ink and that ink actually seeps through to the front a little, and then they later change it to like a brown ink or something like that doesn't. But nothing so overt as the F face or of Billy Ripken. So
that's hilarious. I was just talking to I met a friend I had to this afternoon, and he mentioned that he had just bought a collection and it had one of the Billy Ripken cards. And I was like, what do those go for nowadays? And
yeah, it'd be fun to get one. I think
he said they go for like $30.
And there's like I think there's like a couple iterations where they tried to fix it like different ways. So I think
there was like a scribble, there was like a black,
like
just
dot
box.
And then it was like airbrush. So I think
for anybody who isn't American and doesn't know, there was a Billy Rip picture of a player for the Baltimore Orioles, and at the bottom of the bat had the words "fuck face" on it, and they printed a bunch of cards in the 1989 Fleer set, and then there was all these issues after it where they did different things to hide that, and so each of those has like a different value because people want to collect, like, I think there's like 4 versions maybe. So it is just one of these things. I was 14 years old at that time, and I remember going to a card show. I bought some packs right when 89 Fleer came out, and then I heard about that, and I went through my cards, and I sure as shit I got one. And so that was pretty cool as a 14-year-old with a card with swear words on it and stuff. It's kind of funny. So
I just checked while you were looking at it, just using PWCC. I checked the Edis, and you have, a couple 3 panels have sold in the last year.
Are they different?
Yeah, there's one on PSA 6 1600. BGS 7 1400, PSA 8 2100.
Okay.
A CSG 9 single for 1,000. And then in 2021, a double BGS 8.5 for 1,500. And then pre-boom a PSA 8 for 200. So
Ooh.
if you do the same thing on PWCC and see how many Forza goals they have sold in their time, in that same time period, there would be a PSA 2 for 5,000, very very much lower than the one had here, and a PSA 4 for the 34,000, which started the whole shebang. So I still think on a relative basis on PWCC, they're still rarer, but that gap is closing in the last few months after that Baggio sale in April.
All right, well, there you have it. Sorry, I don't know if there is. I don't know if there is anything specific, but it's just that there's actually an error. It's so obvious that they had to put the picture of Baggio and the Manelli photo in the Baggio.
So I don't I'll post it. Hopefully, it was that I didn't see who that was. If they're on the Discord, I'll post.
Oh yeah, he's on Discord.
Okay, so I'll post that in the vintage chat.
Perfect. So, all right, I'm gonna keep scrolling here. We got a Bremer Pele PSA 5 for 3,500 or 3,600. That's crazy low compared to like what those were going for. Especially with a 5.
No doubt.
PSA 6 Sicker Verlag for 5,100.
I love that sticker.
Yep. I think that might be that's like the sleeping giant of
Cruyff's.
Yep. All right, we got the Brazil team. So that's also PSA 5 for 5,700. Just
love that classic
photo.
5,700 is a decent price, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's not bad. I know it was sold for more, a while back, but I think that's still, it's at least holding decently, especially when you compare it to the, the solo Pele. PSA 5, Vecchi Idolos for 7,500.
Yeah, that had last sold for like
20 some.
Yeah, 20
or 20.
We all thought that was actually kind of a good deal.
Yeah, we were like, I'm sure you'd be happy with that.
Now this one had some what I believe to be paper loss on the front. There was a bunch of white dots, and that others may have seen the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
I always hesitate to say, like, I'm not even saying like that. They very well could have been paper loss, but regardless, there was something there to cause doubt or cast doubt, but I've seen some where people have bought albums and it looked like there's paper loss, and then when they soaked it, it came off. And then it was like I think I saw somebody do that with a Titulares album, and the Pele looked janky, and then they soaked it, and it was like gorgeous. So it may or may not be that, but regardless, there's enough of an issue to probably temper some people's bids.
Yeah. And then the Cibeles, I think was, I love that sticker. I love that card in general from 1968, but it's $11,000 for,
Yeah, it's a clean looking one.
Beautiful. It just, and I love the back. It's so nice. Contamos Contigo album. It's just, it just felt to me like a massive.
Is that a
price.
Spanish?
Yeah.
Issue?
Yeah, Spanish issue. So I love this. I love that album. I love this card. It just felt like a pretty big price for that sticker in this market. But
yeah,
you know what? Congrats.
I don't know anything about this set.
Yeah, I have a few. Always liked it. Nice set.
Yeah, it's really nice. Man, those stickers back then were just so clean with that yellow and green, and then just that solid color background. Like, yeah, just amazing. So there we go. That was the regular auction from Golden. Some hits, more misses overall. But if you can flip that money into something else, then maybe it's not the worst thing. Some of those that you took hits. All right, and then here's the we're gonna go to the Elite auction from Golden, and that only had, I think, 21 items, and I don't think there was much in the for vintage. So Just stop me if there's anything, because I don't think there was much that caught my eye. We have the Beckenbauer 7 for 7,500 in the bigger slab.
Yeah, it's hard to. I mean, I know you can probably send them in and get that, but I mean, that's a. I think that's a low price for such an epic card. But then
Mm-hmm.
again, the pop has been growing at those high grades,
Yep.
and then the
TTT.
TTT for 7,800 is probably a good price in this market as well. I don't have a problem with that.
Yep, I like that. And I mean, I think that's a super underrated issue, actually. Like, I think that could be the one of his that's, at the end of the day, is up top. I mean, I understand the Bergman's always going to have the mass appeal, but
Yeah, because it's a card, the photograph, but
yeah,
I think the TTT is super underrated too. It's kind of like the
yeah,
Sicker
relative to the
Verlag.
rarity, right?
Yeah, the Sicker Verlag. I haven't checked the pops recently, but I'm gonna guess that the TTT is rarer than the Bergman, and that's always been my feeling.
Oh, I would agree with that. Yeah. All right. A lot of new stuff. And there we have it. There's our Golden Elite. So I hope you guys enjoyed that review. Pretty amazing. All right. Bye-bye. But hey, we're
Can we,
45
can,
minutes in, so
can
we
we can we tell that Jamie's not there anymore?
yeah. You don't have somebody in the Discord accumulating consigners. All right, and then the last one is the PWCC. They seem to, I don't know, they seem to do pretty well on the premier auctions most of the time.
Yeah.
But let's get to this. I sorted it by oldest to newest. So we have the Puskas rookie SGC1, 25K. How do you feel about that?
I mean, obviously it's the back isn't great on this one, but the front I think is really good. I know that some people feel that's strong. I felt it a little weak. I think when we did our over under, I kind of expected this to be kind of mid 30s. So yeah, I still an epic card.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to own this
Yep.
copy. But I felt it was a little lower than I had thought.
Yeah. I think it's probably fair. I mean, it is one of the it's got on the back, it's a little it's got some issues,
Yeah.
and so it's probably fair. I agree it might be a little weak. But I still think, I mean, it's nice that it's still up there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Price wise, like it's not like it sold for 15 or something like that. So like, I feel it's still in that, margin of error.
Yeah.
Just probably at the like the low end of that margin. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's one that, I mean, you're not going to get too many opportunities to get one of those. So it's congratulations to whoever bought that. Okay. Here's a question regarding some minor bright spots in the golden auction. Thoughts on the two Di Stefanos? The prices seem solid on those. The Torres and the Ruiz Romero. Yeah, I think just because they hadn't really been listed before. So Golden, I think, gets the probably some higher end collectors that maybe are dabbling in soccer but aren't necessarily super aware. Like, I think the Torres that's a good buy. I don't necessarily think that did great. I think that it was a pretty cleanish copy. Those are really tough to get like in decent shape. I'm sorry, we're bouncing back to Golden for a second. Yeah, but
Yeah. No, it's all good.
So the Ruiz Romero, I think, was just somebody had never seen it before, and it was a high grade. And I still think for under $1,000, I mean, I think that's fine. But just relative to the Torres and what that sold for, like I would buy that Torres in a lower grade, 10 times out of 10, with with that pricing. So the Torres, honestly, I think that one has way more room to move than the Ruiz Romero.
I would agree with that.
And then on the, or is this uninformed new buyers that have moved beyond Pele and Maradona? Is Di Stefano's profile rising? I think that is probably potentially the case. I just think that sometimes, like, I mean, it's not like Al and I are like, oh, we talk about every item in every auction pre the sale, or like a lot of the knowledgeable collectors in the Discord, they're not necessarily going, if no one asks or brings up the Ruiz Romero, nobody's really going to throw out the opinion on that, like I'm not, that's just a nondescript card. So I think that, maybe somebody just wasn't aware that that's, not necessarily as rare. But I think the 8, that like Al said, that's probably likely the highest grade that will have. So, I mean, for under $1,000 at the end of the day, I mean, how much are you really going to take a hit aside from macro, So
yeah, I mean, and look at you're talking to the wrong guy if you want, me to say stuff bad about Di Stefano. I mean, the reality is,
yeah,
if you're collecting soccer and you knew nothing about history, with just a tiny bit of digging, you're going to run into him super quickly, just like you will with Puskas, right? So, I think going for high grade cards of his, or any cards of his, really, I think is not a bad, approach. I think that, I think you'd struggle to find lots of lists that had him below the top 10 players ever.
Yeah.
So, and then just such a fascinating story from Argentina, Colombia, Spain being kidnapped, all the 5 in a row at Real Madrid, just all of the greatness that he embodied, is a place that, I think that makes a lot of sense to, think about investing in. And obviously a similar Pele card, if you want to look at that, is the Los Cibeles card that we just looked at, and that's trading at 11x. So was Pele 11x Di Stefano? Well, in the current market, probably, but does that always need to remain that way? I don't know. And so I don't. While that card wasn't for me, because I'm not always like thinking, oh, I need the highest grade, it definitely was. You could, there's a narrative there where you could, feel pretty good about that for the long run, because, a lot of the market does focus on the highest grade, and that will likely be the highest grade forever.
Yes. So, sorry, my dog barked.
We heard him.
So, yeah. So, all right. Let's see. We have a PSA 8 Bremer Fakring for $6K. I mean, that's
super light, right? Given all the ones at Golden that were going for, 5.
Yeah, the 5 for 38.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that seems light. Okay. But then we get to the Aquarelas, which just keep pumping out. 4.5 for 12 and a half. A 7 for 66.
Now that 7, I think, wasn't there a 7 that sold for
like 90?
Oh, I thought it was even more than that. But yeah, okay.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, like I and again, I could be wrong, but I thought it crossed 100. But
okay,
regardless, 90, 100, whatever. That's just a massive decrease in a couple months.
Yeah, but we kind of felt like it was
Over.
yeah, like at least you and I did. There was just this crazy, like, I still think that's crazy. Personal, I mean, crazy is
Me
not the
too.
right word.
Me too.
That's surprising, and like I just feel like, I mean, there's like a true interest in that sticker more so than like I think we expected. So
And beyond what we both have, I mean, I think we're biased just of seeing them for a long time. Not that
yeah,
we don't have the sticker. It's just
right.
for a PSA 7, when I can barely tell the difference between, a 1, a 3, and a 7 because of the perforations. 66,000 seems like a tremendous amount.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
yeah. Okay,
Still,
Scott shot a question. Do you find it odd that with all the 20s cards being sold on Toto of the early Spanish greats that we don't see many of them coming up for sale on Golden and PWCC?
uh,
So like, because Toto, there was a
I think they're
lot.
collectors. I think it's just collectors, right? And collectors don't
Yeah.
typically sell stuff.
But, to be fair, like everybody that's buying from Toto off the Discord are not all collectors.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
so
That's true.
like getting some, I think part of the issue is that you just haven't been able to get them graded.
Slab, yeah.
So I think that might have been the biggest challenge, and I think that's probably why we don't see more of them on. But like, what was it there? There was a 20s Zamora that just sold recently, and it went for a pretty good price for what it was. So I think we will see that moving forward as things do get graded and sent back. So yeah, I think that I don't think that's there's anything aside from it not being able to be graded up until recently. All right. Here's our PSA 8 Beckenbauer for 13K. The Cruyff for Cruyff 7 for 11. What did the one on the in Golden go for?
Yeah, so it was a PSA 6 and it
Yeah.
went
And it went for like $6,000, right?
Yeah, so this particular 7 is, at least to my eyes, a really nice copy.
Mm.
The PSA 8 is a little bit softer 8 than the one that sold for 66,000, but it's still an 8, and when you get it for $50,000 less,
Yeah.
that's I guess it seems like some sort of a value. Of course, the Palarex Cruyff here at 817,000 feels like a low print as well, but this one had, looked like on the back there was potentially like it had been removed.
Yeah, I remember that.
Hard to tell. Like I probably would have jumped in on that one if it looked cleaner, because I just feel like I see lots of value in that card. And then the highest graded Crack, which is one of my favorite Maradona cards.
Oh, it's just gorgeous. Yeah.
It just 72. I could definitely make a narrative that card should have been well north of 100, given its what I think its importance are. But those Newton rings looked like it had a crease on it. The corners didn't look nearly like 8 corners to my eyes, and maybe others felt that way, or maybe it was the market. But I would say, if I had that sticker in an 8 and what I would think an 8 would look like, I'd be disappointed by that number. But that number on that card in that slab, I think, was a strong result. So, it's weird the way that, you kind of have to balance those two.
Yeah. We got a question here. What will soccer pop reports look like by 2026 relative to other sports? It depends on what area you're speaking of. I think that, it'll never be like other sports just because there wasn't as much issued. I think that's it. The question is, what will the demand be also relative to the pop reports? And so the pop reports are just one of the inputs to figuring out the pricing. I mean, we're all hoping the demand keeps going up. And I think that of all the sports, it has the most opportunity for the demand to keep going up. Pop reports, I mean, we're going to see them consistently grow as people either, find things. But there's been a mad rush for people finding things over the last few years. But I think the other input is when people start passing away or getting towards the longtime collectors that say, I got to get rid of this stuff because I don't want to leave it for my family or make them have to deal with it. Or they do pass away and their family doesn't want to deal with it. So I think those are the two biggest drivers just for the population of cards or stickers, because we don't necessarily know. We can kind of project anecdotally, just based on our past experiences and what we've seen, but particularly with vintage. But it's hard to say what the pop reports will look like.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that you almost have to categorically say they're going to be significantly less than the other sports. And the main reason why is because, America on a relative basis is a much bigger country than any other country that issues, cards or stickers. And with the exception of the World Cup stickers, almost all issues were issued in one country. So you have, if it was issued in Portugal, they had 8 million people at that time. The UK, 35 million at this time that this was done. So from an order of magnitude, even if they were produced on a relative basis more, like some of those UK issues from the 1930s, they're still much more rare than issues that we would normally look at for the other sports that were mostly issued in the US. So that's why I think that from a macro perspective, the pops can never be, I mean, how many Mickey Mantle rookies are there? 2,000 graded PSA, and probably another 500 at SGC. Do I think that we're going to see 2,500 Beckenbauer rookies or Cruyff, Palarex rookies ever graded? No. I think if those numbers get to 500, that would be huge numbers, And so on a relative basis, you start to look at it and say, okay, and if global demand ever approaches remotely what the U.S. demand is for baseball, that's where you start to think about, from a market perspective, the incredible potential and shift and value for soccer card collectors over time. Now, am I going to say that this Palarex will ever hold the stature of a Mickey Mantle 52 tops? Of course not, right? I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to say that. But just if it shifts in that direction relative to that, and this is a top 10 graded, Cruyff card, and this is a top 10 graded Beckenbauer card, a top 10 Mantle card is selling for $5 million or something like that, and a top 10, and by the way, no one's saying that Mantle, there's other reasons why the card's iconic. No one's saying that he was a top 5 player whereas both these guys are probably top 5 cards. Yep. And they're, top 5 players or top 7 players. And these are, the top 10 card, of their rookies that we're looking at on the screen. And so when you look at it on that relative basis, you're like, man, why didn't I just fucking mortgage my house and go double down on these things, right?
Yeah, it's just a matter of how much you believe.
So I don't want to talk people into the narrative here, and I don't. And look at, I didn't buy all these cards either, right? So you got to take it with a grain of salt. But fundamentally, when you look at it, that's a key question. How will it relate? How will pops relate? They can't get as high, anywhere close to as high as the other sports. And that includes hockey too, because, that's issued in the US and Canada. But a lot of these things are just, super rare relative to those things. And then if the demand comes even close to materializing, there's only one thing that can happen to these prices over time, and that's going up. Now, if demand never materializes and the pops keep raise, which pops can only go up from here. They're not going to go down, right? So the pops are going to go up. And if the demand never materializes, well, then prices are going to go down. That's just the law of supply and demand. So that's kind of your bet. I'm long soccer, continue to be long soccer because of what we've just discussed a little bit here. But yeah, it matters also, a ton on which issues you're talking about, right? If you would have told me 2 years ago that there'd be 3x Power-Rex to Verlag, which I don't even know if that is the case right now, but I'd probably be a bit shocked. I would have thought they'd be much closer in pops. But I think over the last couple of years, of course, again, because the prices for the Power-Rex have done well, we've seen more Power-Rexes. So, you never have a perfect purview to the future pop reports, but you can have some educated guesses as we go along.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are on the same page in regards to that. I think that, I mean, just because, I mean, especially for the long time collectors or the longer time collectors, pre-boom collectors, I mean, we've seen, the change, right? Like, I mean, you guys coming in that maybe started during the boom, think that, wow, there's only 800 people in this vintage Discord, and it's like, where our perspective is like, wow, there's 800 collectors, like it's just a whole different perspective. So like we've already seen the growth, and where you guys kind of jumped in when that growth had already taken that first large bump. So it's it's a lot about perspective, but I agree with pretty much everything Al said in regards to the belief long term with the growth of demand. And like a lot of the longtime collectors, like we were patient back then. We were collecting because we wanted to collect. It wasn't because these things were worth a ton, because they weren't. And a few were, but now it's like nothing's changed for us. We're still long term and still pretty comfortable with where it's headed. So but it's all perspective, and I totally get it. And it's also entry point, like, I mean, I understand getting antsy if you bought something and it dropped 70% in value. Like that's a psychological battle, and but yeah, I think we went through this. So let me scroll through the rest of the items.
Yeah, so that Maradona in a PSA 9, the Calciatore, sold for 30 recently, so that's another one down 50.
Yeah.
We've got this new entrant, Ronaldo rookie, that's selling for 12, highest rated non-qualified copy. I'd say that's a pretty good result in this market. But then again, there haven't been that many that hit. I think the CR7 at 43,000 and a PSA and a BGS 9.5 is a pretty good result given other softness in the market. And then, man, a PSA 9 BGS rookie for 11 grand. And the PSA 9 for 22 and the BGS for 11. That BGS discount just, so basically a 50%. That's crazy. Like, I'd love to see if that 9 could cross, because, I think that's a low price for a PSA 9 Messi rookie. There's still only like 40 of them or something. It's not like it's a super, and then there's 2010. So you're talking a top 60 Messi rookie. Yeah. So that, that's it. Certainly there's a number of bloodbath type cards out there. There are some weird results, and usually those are on the rarer cards that haven't come to market or exceptionally high grade. It certainly isn't a complete bloodbath with the whole, everything being red, but there's way more red out there than there is, green, and the green seems, potentially some just misinformed or kind of anomalies,
Yeah.
so but and I hate to say it, and I'm not giving investment advice, but generally, I'm a buyer. I just noticed I've got invoices to pay at PWCC, and they could fund us a nice used car plus a lot of stuff. So I think that there's it's a good time for collectors, and I'd be nervous about selling stuff, but we do have this World Cup bump that should materialize. It has materialized every time. So, and the US is in it. So
Yeah.
let's see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm interested to see. I am cautious moving, as a seller, I'm cautious. Just the unknown. This is a whole different, animal, like with the macro pushing on it. But we'll see, and it's going to be interesting. And I'll definitely have my eyes on all the auctions, but I'm not sure I'm going to be selling too much. But maybe that's good. And maybe if a bunch of people have that idea, then the sellers will be happy because there won't be as much out there. So anyway, everybody, thanks for chiming in the chat. We appreciate you. Another month in the books. We only have 2 more before the new year again, and only 1 more. Next time we do it, the World Cup will be going on.
World Cup will be on.
So, yeah, that's exciting. I can't wait. This is a happy time of year. Most wonderful time of the year. And anyway, if you guys are viewers and are not a member of the Vintage Soccer Card Discord, there's a link down below. Hop in there and join and see if it's something that interests you. And if not, that's cool too. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
All right, take care.